Fausto back again on our podcast, and I am looking forward to today. A very, very good old friend of mine, Bo Yoder. I've been knowing him for I think it's got to be at least maybe 30 years, and we just had him on our Cyber Expo, and I wanted to have him on and just kind of have that conversation with him a little bit more, other than just teaching a little bit about the style, but more or less just get to know a little bit more about him, understand why we're here and why he's been doing it for so long. And and kind of let you know that listen, we're just like you guys. We started like you, we traded like you, and we just enjoy teaching people like you because we hate seeing people lose money. So, Bo, welcome to the show, Bo. How's everything going?
Thanks. I appreciate everybody being patient. We're on the backup of the backup of the backup. I got a different headset. We got a different everything going, but we're here. We're live, and I'm glad to be here. So thanks for inviting me.
That's good to see. Where are you logged in from? Where are you based at right now?
I live in Charleston, South Carolina.
So you're smarter than me.
Yeah. Oh God, I say it's San Diego weather with some moisture. But,
Okay.
Basically the technical difficulties we've just exchanged. Back when you and I met, we had to get on an airplane and fly to Vegas to do something like this. So it's okay to kind of futz with the computer and not have to sit on an airplane for 5 hours to deal with this and reach out to a big group of people. So I appreciate the technology.
No, that's fine. And listen, it happens to all of us, but we're here now. But anyway, regarding about about a little bit about you, Bo. I know you've been doing this. How long have you been around for this? I mean, it's almost 30 years now. It's been.
Yeah, I think it's 27. It's been full time for me. I started in 1997, so it was back in the early days. The Watcher. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that.
Of course, the Watcher. Everyone remembers the Watcher.
Yeah, Fry Fatigue and West, and that whole beginning Harvey Houken, and that was really the first period at which you could be a trader and not live, in a serious level, and not live in New York or Chicago or Singapore, one of the big hubs. I was really lucky. I grew up on a little island in Maine, just out of Portland, Maine, and we were a test bed for Roadrunner.
Lobster World.
So so I was a little kid, and we had this high-speed internet for $30 a month as a test bed, whereas most of the other pros were paying $1,500, $1,800 a month for a T1 line. So honestly, if I hadn't had that good fortune, I probably wouldn't have been, able to do it. And I right now. So started off when things were very, very new. As you probably remember, there was, trading super boring and tedious because you're just waiting around for the market to do something stupid and give you some discount. And then we had IRC, these text-based chats. And so we'd get in there and, BS and talk about the market and our calls. And so I kind of gathered a following there organically because what I was doing was working. And then that sort of led to a bunch of different speaking engagements, getting, invited to different expos, doing seminars all around the world and the US. A couple of book deals. And so it's been a really interesting career in that way. I come from a family of teachers and I really enjoy it. Plus, as you know, you don't really know anything at a mastery level until you have to break it down and try to share it with another person. So selfishly, I think the teaching process really helped me sort of understand the fundamentals of this business in really deep ways.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. So you that's how you started. You got into it. So how did you get into into the education business or teaching people or whatever? How did that come to fruition?
I went to one of the trading expos to basically meet in real life some of the people that I was chatting back and forth with, and ended up meeting some people there. And they said, "Hey, would you like to teach a seminar?" And I, never done any public speaking, never been in front of a room. And I, but why not? Let's try it. So they gave me a speaking gig, and I was terrified. I remember I hid behind the podium because my legs were shaking so bad. But they, loved it. It was very well received. I had a little bit of a different view on things. I kind of came up before a lot of the trading education was a thing. So I was really leaning on a lot of books that were written in the 1800s, 1910, like really old stuff before the 1929 crash. There were a couple of big bull markets back then and a lot of speculative interest. And so I was a really kind of a hardcore tape reader. In other words, everything everybody says about the market is made up, or they're talking their book. The only thing that's real is real money went into a market or came out, and you see that on the charts. So I've always kind of had that as my core, with price action and volume being the basis for everything. And that was a little bit of a different flavor, and it took off, and people really loved it and got a lot of value out of it, and kept getting asked back. And so it sort of came organically. I didn't set out to become a public speaker, but I really enjoyed it, and it was a great way to be part of that community and meet everybody, and I'm really glad I did.
No, I remember back then. Listen, you were actually a great speaker. Listen, I was never a speaker. I didn't start to be a speaker, and I'm like, but you know what? I know that all recruited to be speakers at like the Money Show, the Traders Expos, and all these
Yeah.
other events around the world. And I remember that you were a pretty big name back then too, in a way that you did a lot of them. I remember we hosted together. You were the moderator on one of my traders challenges and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Well, you were one of the few guys who would put your yourself right out there in front of everybody in Trade Live. I mean, that was sort of how, I was different because I was just trading, good, bad, ugly. You're making money in front of everybody or losing money and talking your way through it. That was really rare. Everybody was talking theory and
Yeah.
possibility, but honest traders who would actually stand up there and take a position in front of everybody, that was rare. So yeah, we are
And
we are an elite group.
it's scary because you know what happens is that you don't want to lose too, because it makes you
Oh
look
yeah.
bad,
Right.
I mean, like for me personally, I lost only once, and then
Yeah.
I had a rematch and I beat him for the second time.
There
I
you
don't want
go.
to repeat that person because some people probably here know who he is.
Yeah.
But I remember you were the actual person that actually was presenting it,
Yeah. I wasn't
and
trading on that one. You guys were.
I'll never forget. I thought I lost for the second time, the same person that I went up against, and I'm like, and this is a funny story. So he goes, you go up to him and you ask him, so what did you finish up with? He said, like, I'm up. It was a terrible market. We were doing crappy. He says, I'm up like $320, right? And I'm
Yep.
like, and I was so pissed because I'm like, dude, I mean, you need to make a lot of money. It's like whatever, not a lot, but just. And then
Yeah.
he
You'd like
said
to have it be at least
320,
1,000.
right? At least 1,000. And I turn it, and you turn around and said, Fausto, what were you up? And I said $330. I beat him by $10, and everyone was like, "Whoa!" You were like, "What?" I'm like, and everyone was flipping out. He was so pissed, that he
Yeah.
lost. Um, but it was, and I remember, and you were the perfect person to host the whole event. I know you don't have of them, but that was one of my greatest memories. I remember hanging out with you at that time, and I think that's what we kind of hit it off a little bit. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
but getting back to a little bit of your style a little bit, I mean, Bo, you've been doing this for a long time, and we all have a really cool
Mhm.
style. And one thing I liked about your style is like you do a little bit more. Like we're tape readers. You remember the Harvey Halkin, days, and I don't know if people know him, but he wrote one of the greatest books ever. It was called The So's Bandit, which is what I was when I started. Being a So's Bandit, and we all will. There's Electronic Day Trader and all those things of Broadway, but tell us a little bit about your style. What have you built over the years, and like what makes you separates you from everyone else, and like what is what have you been doing that's been working?
Well, so I think for me it was seeing the different styles, different approaches, and that they all were not necessarily right for you, but valid mathematically, right? So it's a little bit like food. Some people like Indian food, some people like Mexican food, some people don't like spicy food, right? So there's no right or wrong; it's what works for you.
It's like food.
So then I had to figure out, who am I? What's my identity? And so I tried to think, okay, I want this. I love it. It's making me more money than I ever, made it as a teenager. It was a dream come true. What can I build my life around that is likely to be here 50 years from now? And so I looked back and I'm like, well, no matter what happens in the markets, there's always going to be people putting money in and taking money out. There's going to be price action. There's going to be accumulation and distribution. And this was very much the basics of the old books. I have this giant book collection. So really fascinating. Before 1929, you look at trading books, they're not written about the market. They're not written about stocks or geopolitics or economics at all. They're written about the syndicates, the stock pool operators, and trying to figure out what these guys are doing. So before
Mhm.
1929, when they changed the regulations for collusion, someone would call me and they'd say, hey, we'd really like U.S. Steel to be below 100. Is that something you can help me out with? Put together a syndicate. So I call you, I call 3 or 4 other guys, and I say, hey, are you interested in putting U.S. Steel below 100? And we all pool our money. And then the client basically gives us a giant payday, either with an option or some kind of a stock payoff if we can get that stock below 100. So we use our money, we put our risk out there, and we basically manipulate the market, utilizing that sort of psychological skill set to dump that market down to a cheap price. At which time these insiders pay us our fat fee, and then they accumulate a ton of shares. So it was a very manipulative, overtly and clearly kind of a market. And so figuring out where the big dogs were, right? The axe, in our early years, trying
That's
to figure out what the market
that's
maker
never
is
in a while.
doing. None of this changes. It's just a different group, different name. Now it's probably Citadel and Jane Street that's doing the manipulations. But it's all about how does a giant, I mean, if you want to buy 1,000 shares, you push a button. If you want to buy 10,000 shares, depending on the stock, you still push a button. 100 contracts in the ES is, you won't get any slippage. It's easy. But what if you wanted 1 million contracts, or what if you want 10 million shares? Then now you have to go into a campaign of accumulation or distribution, and then you block trade that, to the client. So there's this whole world that most traders don't really know about, where people have large enough size behind them that they can push the price up and down intraday. And they've always done this, and that's basically what tape reading is kind of watching how the market reacts to stimulus. But in the last year and a half, we've seen a lot more, especially if you're an intraday trader, you see a lot less human activity and more machine activity, right? So
Right.
I grew up in Maine, spent a lot of time in the woods. You're walking in this beautiful, wild environment, and suddenly you see a bunch of trees in a straight line. Well, there's an old foundation, right? Because trees don't grow in a straight line. That's human. So if you're on a 5-minute chart, on a 1-minute chart, I trade a lot of futures. So let's say looking at the ES, and it just goes up 9 bars in a row. That's a machine, right? That's an
Right.
accumulation campaign. That's, it's a buy program. It's zooming the market up for a reason. And if you can understand why that's happening, you can forecast it and you can exploit it. So, right now, I think that the AI revolution that we've all seen in the large language models and other things has been integrated into the intraday trading space. So you'll see the market make a textbook perfect double bottom. Every person who's ever read a book knows that, right? So that's a buy signal, and then it'll go straight up violently in a FOMO move, right, to create emotional pressure to get everybody engaged in that new trend. Then it'll make a perfect pullback. Perfect textbook. I mean, that, in an organic world, that doesn't happen all that often. It's usually a mess. Perfect textbook pullback. It's an advertisement. It's getting everybody involved. And then they'll FOMO it up again, right? And so what they're doing is they've had an accumulation campaign. I call it liquidity farming. They've farmed out a big a long position, and then they will paint the tape. And now I think they're able to do it with AI probably better than humans could do it, and create the visual triggers for bullish sentiment. To put that price up to a premium level that they're interested, and then usually at a big breakout or a big liquidity pool point that deeper time frame traders, there's a lot of manipulation for the hourly setups, for instance. So you watch the market right now as we get close to the hour. So let's say we're trading and it's 9:45, 9:50, 9:55. That's often when you'll see these highly directional buy and sell programs go off, because they're taking, let's say, a giant topping tail on the hourly chart and turning it into a giant green Morbozu bar. Get everybody offside, get them all shocked and emotional. What's happening? God, I was up so big. Now I'm back to break even. And they're trying to trigger that trader psychology in order for you to release your contracts or your shares to them for their purposes. So
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, they're utilizing the human psychology of crowds to produce an outcome that benefits them economically.
Like your style is very similar to mine, and I just did a class just before we got on, and we talk about this in the green room, because you're talking about manipulation with Citadel, and even BlackRock has something to do with it. All these big companies, because it's all about, like you just said, and I haven't heard that word in a long time, the axe, and I'm going to start bringing it back because I love that word. It's the dominating market maker, and what people don't know is a market maker is actually a trader in the brokerage firm, and we call him the axe because he trades the most shares. But you're right, a lot of the algorithms, the high frequency trades, all that stuff has been kicking in. Yesterday, I had MJ from Microsoft, who's one of the top AI developers there, and he was talking about it too. And he was telling me, I mean, listen, AI has been around. He said, I didn't know this. It's been around since the 60s and 50s. I mean, remember back in the day, we had the black boxes and stuff. It's just all algorithms and stuff. But yeah, it's actually, but what's nice about today is a lot of people are starting to realize it. And you get to see a lot more of that technology now. I mean, like I'm on NASDAQ and I show how to use a NASDAQ book viewer. You see the algorithms. And that's what I kind of tell everybody. That's like the right of the chart. Everybody looks at the left of the chart. That's the right of the chart. It's all seeing those orders, because those orders are what make those big support and resistance levels. But getting back to what you just mentioned earlier, what do you think has been changing? I mean, like, you telling me, like, with the manipulation and everything else, is there really manipulation going on, or is this just,
I think absolutely. I don't have a proof, but my sort of working theory right now is that the big market makers have become so big.
Yeah.
One of the dominant players. So this will blow your mind if you haven't heard this stat. This was one of my aha moments in the last, I don't know, 6-8 months. You can look it up. But they got over $1 trillion in buying power. They've got over $600 billion in options on their books. And check this out. So I've done a lot of edge consulting. I wrote the book Optimize Your Trading Edge. So people will come to me with their strategies, and I'll break it down and try to figure out how to make them better. And as good as I think I am, I can maybe help them 10 or 15% increase in profitability, based on different filters and things for their trades. So
Right.
the dominant market maker increased their profitability by 80% in the last 2 quarters, which is probably 3 quarters now. That doesn't happen unless there's a change, right? So I know this will kind of go out into the future, but if you look at big stocks like Nvidia, after the yen carry trade blew up, there was a big move up, and then it had a weird and inappropriate pullback, which for organic trading would be very surprising, and it blew everybody out on the long side, and all those trades were sucked dry. The liquidity was harvested, and then it went up to all-time highs.
Right.
So we see a lot of these moves where you're like, wow, that was weird. That didn't make any sense. And and you're fine. Your risk management keeps you out of it, but it's confusing and kind of weird because the market isn't pulling back to normal support levels, just blows them out and goes to some random place in the middle of nowhere and then scorches back to the upside. So good traders take the hit, are thankful that their stop didn't allow them to go much lower. And then when the reversal kicks in, you see that and you get back on board and it's fine. But for a lot of people, they're caught off sides and they don't really understand why. And so I think that's how the game has shifted in the last year and a half, and I've seen more and more of that. And I went back to some of these old books. I got this one that was written in 1898, and I'm reading through it, and I'm going, oh, that's exactly what they're doing. Oh, that's exactly what they're doing. And it's so my hypothesis is that these guys have gotten so big that a million shares doesn't matter, 10 million. Now they need hundreds of millions. Right. So the game has changed. For them to move the needle, they've got to take so much size that it takes a different way of thinking about accumulation and distribution, right? They can't do it in the old ways. And so I think they've shifted the paradigm. And in doing so, there's more psychological pressure being applied. And everybody always makes the excuse. Everything that I've ever done, stocks, options, Forex, futures, oh, the market's rigged. Oh, the market makers are out to get me. Yeah, they are.
They are.
And yeah,
Yeah, they
rigged. Absolutely, it's rigged. Do you think the PPI numbers don't leak? I mean, think how much money there is to be made. So instead of being frustrated by that, if you have an entity that's such a massive monster behemoth that it can put price up or down at will intraday, and you can figure out what they're about to do, it's a little bit like the old movie where the mafia guys get the boxer to to lay down in the 8th round, to fix the betting. It's like if you know what that is, then, I mean, it's not 100%, but your probability for success goes way up and your risk reward goes way up, because now you're looking at these big monster moves that you can forecast with pretty good accuracy. And, it changes the game for an intraday trader or even at the swing level.
So how does we have like close like over several hundred people that are listening right now. So what should they do to protect themselves? I mean, like in the future, because now everyone's thinking like, and I know we've done so many events together, and this is one thing that bothers me. And like we'll be in front of we've done speakings and we'll be in front of like 200-300 people, and you always have this, hate this word asshole, but like, oh, you're gonna lose all your money, and I'm like, listen, I'm here to help you. Why did you lose? What did you do? And you find out that they said they tried to day trade and they weren't day trading. They were mainly swing trading, and it wasn't really a swing trade. It turned into an investment.
Yeah, they have no plan.
I mean, and like, relax. Let's just talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's why you're here. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you. And you've been there. You've seen that. You get those hecklers, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But and you have to deal with it. But at the end of the day, we're only here to help you. We're not here to hurt you. So how do people protect themselves? Or I know that when you were on last time, you were talking about meditation. You were talking about, psychological. I mean, like my style is I tell everybody, don't worry about the damn winners. It's the losers you got to worry about. Like Absolutely. I did a trade yesterday, and the market, we had so many stocks that were running yesterday. Like, I don't care they're running. I got 3 losers right now. I got to take care of that. And if I didn't get out of those losers, I'll give you one of them. I did a swing trade on RGET, okay? Rigetti, okay? Big run up, what happened? NVIDIA CEO came out and told them that quantum stocks are obviously, and they're like 10 years, behind. It's not going to be for 10 years. So those stocks took off. I got into that stock and it had a big run up. The thing ran, I don't know if you have it on your execution system, but it ran from like $1, $2. They said they came out the biggest, best, most powerful computer. Thing ran to 20. I got in around 19, right? It went to 20. I sold it yesterday at 17. Took a big hit, right? It opened up at 9 today. You know what I mean? So, like, as people are like, how did you know that? I said, because that's the experience that we talk about. And that's why I loved about you, about your psychology part. So could
Yep.
you tell everybody, because I only could say it so much, you know what I mean? But
Right. Oh yeah. Well,
so how
so
would you get affected?
let's talk about the psychology because that's what's being exploited. And then let's go to some examples of liquidity farming and harvesting that are kind of top of mind. And if anybody who watches this in the future, you can go back and look at this because they're blatant right in your face. So uh, one of the most frustrating things, if you actually care about the people that you work with, and I do a lot of one-on-one stuff, so I get really involved with these people and I get to know and really like them. And you teach them something technical, something mechanical, something mathematical, and they nod and they understand it and they can execute it beautifully when they're paper trading. And then the minute you put money on the line, or even worse, you put a certain amount of money on the line, 100 grand, a million are often big numbers when your account gets that level, or maybe you're used to trading with $1,000 risk and then you go up to five, and your mind just melts. Well, so I had a couple of people I really cared about who just couldn't break through, and they had all the skills. It was all psychology. So I went on this sort of vision quest over 2 years, going deep into neuroscience and behavioral economics, all the things why the brain works the way it does. Long story short, you have a system which was discovered in 2009 called the default mode network, which is the demon that in your mind. Pretty much all human suffering and misery comes from this network. It's the part of the brain that makes the inner dialogue. It's the self-talk. It's the obsessive rethinking of, was this a good trade? Should I trail my stop? Should I let it breathe? Like all those decisions that you make during the process of a trade when it's real. And so what happens is there are two other opposing systems. When you are doing analysis, the task positive network is dominant. You don't have the demons whispering in your ear. The minute you take the trade, what do? Nothing. Nothing you can't do. And
Yeah,
then
you're like a deer in the headlights.
yeah, this different brain system kicks in, which is an animal survival brain, and it makes you paranoid, right? You're looking over your shoulder for the saber-toothed tiger or the bear that's going to attack you. And you start talking yourself out of things. You start talking yourself into doing dumb stuff. You start, greed and fear kicking. And so I went down a long rabbit hole, which is sort of its own thing, but discovered a way without drugs, without any spiritual woo-woo kind of stuff, just hardcore body hacking neuroscience to be able to turn that system off at will. And so essentially, you can go in and reprogram your default responses to stimulus, right? Because a lot of people have these weird fears of success or weird fears of loss. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to have to tell their wife they lost a bunch of money. They don't want to, because everybody, when you tell someone you're a trader, and that's blanket advice, if you're trying to do this and you're in the struggle phase, don't tell anybody. Just do it as a private quest, because everybody's going to say, "How's that going? How's that going?" And when you have a great day, it's fun to brag. But when you have a crap day, which will happen a lot, you
I
have to
kind of
go,
tell anyone, don't even tell what you do for a living, because you know
no,
what?
absolutely not.
Unless they're in the business and they're doing well, don't even tell anybody, because
Yeah.
you know what? They all tried it, Bo, and they all end up losing money because they'll try to do it themselves, and then they're
Yep.
like, you
No
just do it.
guidance, no clue.
Yeah, just don't even tell anybody. I tell everyone, everyone's listening. Just do your own thing. Just
It's
stick with
great.
guys like us. Do your classes. Surround yourself with a good crew. But
Yep. So basically, I can teach you in 30 seconds, and then you guys can play with it. It goes a lot deeper than this, and obviously,
yeah, show us.
we can go there. So, without going into the neuroscience behind it, you just want to puff out as if you're trying to blow birthday candles across a room. So engage your abdominals, purse your lips, blow out. This may be real bad on the mic. I'm going to put the mic up. So you're going. Get a little lightheaded. Then you switch and you do a deep inhale. Relax. Then take the deepest breath you can until you feel stretch in your lungs and hold. You're a little dizzy. You're kind of feeling a little wobbly. What you've just done is distorted your blood chemistry. You've made your blood hyperoxygenated, and you've lowered your CO2 levels, which creates a lot of neuroactive compounds to be released. So dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, it feels kind of good. You get a little bit of a rush, and your whole body just mellows down. And so if you run through this protocol a few times, and you can do it, it takes 5 minutes. So literally, you take a trade. Let's say you just scaled up. It's January. You're going big, man. Last year was awesome. You put more money in your account. You sold a business, whatever. Now instead of taking 30, 40 contracts, you're going to take 200. It's your first trade. You jump in the ES, man, you got this thing going, and you push the button, and then all of a sudden the demons start screaming, oh my God, you should have scaled up slower. Why are you doing? Are you sure this is a good trade? Should we trail our stop? It's gone up, oh my God, you're up 50 grand. I've never been up 50 grand before. This is amazing. It's like right? It's that internal dialogue that we all experience.
It's a double angel on both corners.
It's just screeching at you. All right. So you do this little huff and puff. It seems stupid and silly, but it will shut that down as if you took a giant, a drug dose and just, shut it down with brute force. So, and then you come back, you're really calm, you're objective, and you can look at your charts as if you're paper. So basically you can put yourself in a paper trading mode biochemically, no matter what's on the line. And it's as somebody who's spent his whole life white knuckling his way through the misery of the manic depressive world of trading and just gut it out. I still had the feelings, I just didn't act it on. Well, now for the last 3 years, I don't have those feelings. It's like a giant burden is lifted off. It doesn't feel like anything anymore. Anyway, so that's awesome. So I call it mielolypsis, which for the root Greek stands for mind download, because you can actually go back. It's a deeper process, but you can actually change the way that the survival system reacts to negative stimulus or fear of threat. But the one I just taught you, I call it chilaxidol. And you can actually go to chilaxidol.com, and I got a bunch of videos up there for free. And in 5 minutes, you can just hijack the brain, take you back to a nice calm state. You'll be clear, you'll be objective, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's good confirmation. I don't want to trail my stop right now. That doesn't make any sense. But if it goes up here, maybe, it puts you back in paper trading mode, and it's really, really valuable. So that's kind of the thing I start with before I even talk about anything technical, because, I've done so much. I can go any direction you want on technical stuff and spin a giant web of tools and statistics, and none of it matters at all. You can't push the button. So now I'm button first, brain first, and then we can worry about whether your strategy is optimal and everything else. So that's been a massive breakthrough. It sounds wacky and people laugh at it, but I swear to God, if you try it, like I joke, I can insult your wife, kick your dog, spit on your kid. You could hate me and think I'm the worst person in the world, but if you do this thing, you'll have the same outcome.
Let me tell you something. You probably would have saved a lot of alcoholics back in the day, because I remember working on the floor of the exchange. What we used to do is
they all do tons of coke, tons of drink constantly, smoke like chimneys. I mean, they're not healthy humans.
The bar, would do coke, and they would just go to the bar and get hammered, and they were all drunks. Listen, I'm not trying to bash it, because I know I have some students that unless you worked on the floor, but they were all.
You can't imagine it. It was excessive.
Stressful job.
Excessive on excessive. Yeah. Well, they did a study in the 70s, and they did a study in the 70s. The two most stressful jobs on the planet was coal miner and commodities trader. So yeah. So you have to learn to either eat the stress and live with the pain, which is what I did for 20 plus years, or now I can turn it off, again, without drugs or anything that's negative to my life, body, ability to live a long, happy life. So anyway, that's kind of the biggest breakthrough. So yeah, ask anything on that. And then I do want to go to liquidity farming and harvesting, because we got a couple of cool examples that people can look at that might give them.
Yeah, maybe you can show some quick examples. Maybe share your screen. Could you share it and show us a little bit?
Unfortunately, in our snafu trying to get back up and running so we wouldn't keep everybody waiting, I closed my charts. So I'll tell you with a word picture, because it'll be more universal anyway. So liquidity farming is the process of inducing the trading public to take directional positions in a manner in which their stops will be clustered in an efficiently tight zone that can then be sucked dry and harvested in the future. Okay, so simplistically, today, for instance, if you guys are watching the market, and I don't remember the time, but it was either pre-market or right after the open in the NQs, we had a kind of a range. It was very choppy. And the market zoomed up and then came off, zoomed up and then it came off, made a little bit lower highs, little lower highs, little lower highs. Right. So every time it comes up and makes a lower high, a lot of people will react to that. There are different trading strategies, indicators roll over, things get broken. And you'll notice that, so that, in my opinion, and I haven't seen the market to see if I'm actually in it, so I might actually get paid. I'll hear the order go off if it goes. But that was a liquidity farm. So they essentially created a zone of in this case, buy orders, because it would be a short, inducement. So everyone went short, and all in a nice tight little zone. So there's a ton of buy orders sitting there. And then they took the market down close to an old low, but didn't break it, right? So they farmed that low. and got everybody who was short to feel really good about their lives. And then threw in a double bottom, classic, a little bit of a higher low, but still a double bottom. It retested the tail. Again, classic
Okay.
pattern, Edwards and McGee 101. And then it scorched back up. And so as soon as that double bottom hit, I realized they weren't going to take it below those lows. They're probably going to go up and suck that liquidity farm. Because remember, these guys want to move the market far enough to get enough premium that it makes sense. They're not trying to scalp for 3 ticks. They want it to go 20, 30 handles, 50 handles, 100 handles in the NQ, right? So it actually makes money because remember, they can't push a button and get in at a level. They're entering in a mushy zone. So their price average is basically going to be somewhere within that zone, right? So they need to have enough spread and travel between those 2 levels to make it worthwhile, which is great for us as individuals. So anyway, so I faded that down move. And when we went live, it was cranking up towards that liquidity farm, and if they go suck that out, my limit order will be sitting in there, and that'll be like a 2.2 to 1. So
Okay.
not a home run, but a
well,
decent risk reward. A journeyman single, and so that's a great example. At the macro level, because this it's all fractal. We can all think about the most confusing thing that happened yesterday. Yesterday, yeah. So CES is the big Las Vegas electronics expo where everybody rolls out all their cool new tech.
Right.
The head of NVIDIA, which of course is the darling right now of the tech world, it's the SIMG or the Cisco. If you go back to their JDS Uniphase, from the internet bubble era, right? There are always these stocks that people really focus on. And their CEO comes out and does this great presentation and offers these new, amazing new breakthrough things in the AI. So AI is hot as a match head. This is the hottest company on the planet, and they have these incredible innovations that are going to be massive, right? So this should be the biggest buy signal you've ever seen in the history of mankind, and the stocks at all-time highs. Right. Okay, so now if you're the syndicate, what is your economic interest? You just got some information, and based on the stock price, I'm assuming that information was closely held, that it wasn't leaked, illegally or not. So what do you want? Well, you want to own NVIDIA. But do you want to buy it at all-time highs? Hell no. You want to crash it as violently, brutally, with as much psychological pain, suffering, and damage as possible, so you can load the boat.
Yeah, shake everyone out.
And it'll back out, and it'll run, and wherever it goes. So NVIDIA, basically crashed. You look at that intraday; it was very scary. It was very emotional. Right. A lot of machine type movement. And it's going to bottom. Probably after taking out a big liquidity level, or, an old swing low or something where all the stops are consolidated, they'll suck that liquidity level dry and then they'll run it back up to all-time highs. Bitcoin did the same thing. What did everybody on the planet who cares about Bitcoin pay attention to? 100 grand. What did it do? And I actually called that on my X account. It went to 108 and then it dumped to 92. What's at 92? All the liquidity pool. So I think you're probably going to see a big dump in Bitcoin. Down significantly, and actually, let's see. Yes, look at that. Very, very violent.
Well, we put up Bitcoin. I'm bringing an iBit so you guys could see it. So I'll just share my screen. So just to show exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, actually, well, I can't point at it, but if you look on that, and it's a little bit small on my screen, so I have a hard time seeing it. But basically, you see how at the lower right side there, how Bitcoin went to an all-time high, which is a great distribution.
Okay, let me bring up Bitcoin right here. So
yeah,
here's iBit.
That daily is really where you're going to see it the best.
Yeah. So here's what happened yesterday. Oh, what am I doing here? There we go. So this was yesterday, and this was today. I'll blow up this chart a little bigger so you guys can see a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But
can you put that on a daily, because it's going to make a lot more sense where the
daily. This is a daily. This is yesterday's, and this is today.
Oh, weird. Okay, hang on a second. Let's see here. Okay, my face is in the way.
I'll move it over. Hold on. Oops, that was weird.
Shoot, you had it. If you go back, yeah, there we go. Interesting. Well, that doesn't look like Bitcoin at all.
Well, this is iBit. This is iBit.
Interesting.
I had Bitcoin right here, but I can't go back farther in history.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, I can talk it out. Basically, if you look at Bitcoin, it went above the magic 100,000 level. That's a huge buy point and a psychological point for everybody.
Right.
So if it went to like I don't know, 120, it would confirm that, right? So there you go. See that rally up there?
Right
and
here.
look at the liquidity farm, right? They just took all of the buying from that beautiful pullback, textbook pullback, and sold it, absorbed all of that buying pressure, got the short position off, and then dumped it down. So there's a zone. I think it might be 85 to 92, but the high is definitely 92. In 92,000 in Bitcoin, that where the liquidity pool and the likely stop loss levels are all placed. So my guess is going to go down there, suck that out, and then you have a real chance for an honest bottom. From a swing trader perspective, that probably will then take us back to all-time highs, and whatever bull run it's going to make, it'll make.
What's your thoughts on this whole thing? Because I mean, listen, we just became big. We've been trading a lot more now ever since, like, I was on NASDAQ, and I was a big fan of it once I knew that, like, we're looking at the stock. This is the BlackRock ETF, which trades very close to how Bitcoin trades. But once I saw they were coming out with it in November, I was keep telling you, so listen, when this thing comes out with it, I mean, Bitcoin's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I mean, this is it. It's done. I mean, once you come out these ETFs, and now just about less than a month ago, then now you can trade options on it. So now it was just unbelievable. Now you can trade options.
Let's go back to syndicate thinking. If you believe, or you think, or because you have insider knowledge, because you're in the political world, that rather than debanking and persecuting crypto people, which is what's happened in the last 4 years, this next 4 years we're going to have strategic reserves and companies are going to own it, and there's this like whole legitimizing of the crypto space. Would you want to be long or short Bitcoin?
Be long.
You want to be long. Well, do you want to buy it at all-time highs? It's the Nvidia story, right back and forth. Well, no, absolutely not. You're going to want to tank it, right? You get the syndicate. You say, hey, Bo, Fausto, can you tank Bitcoin for me so I can buy it cheap? We'll pay you a giant fee. And so that's the game. It's poker. There you go. Okay, so now look at that head and shoulders. Do you see that just jumping right off the chart on you?
Right here?
Nope. In recent price action.
Oh,
big
right up
run
here?
up, big old fat head and shoulders.
Right here.
Nope. In that congestion in the highs where we are right now.
Oh, you're talking about here?
Yeah, right in there. That's the right shoulder, right? So now it would make sense based on classic technical analysis that everybody knows. We're going to go down and take out the neckline. So where would the most likely liquidity pool sit? In terms of people going short Bitcoin, which in most cases honestly means they're just going to sell their position. It'd be right in there. So I think it's going to go down there. I think it's going to dig down. I think you'll see volume go through the roof, and then I think you'll see a bottoming process form. And so I'm looking for that. Also, if you go back to the Nvidia chart, that also made a classic head and shoulders. It set up the head and shoulders, got everybody short, and then pivoted and scorched them higher. So this is syndicate thinking. Yep.
Yeah, this thing.
So see the head and shoulders there. Basically there. So there's a double top, false breakout, and then you got a lower high to confirm the top. It sells off. It takes out the shoulder. There's no excuse for anybody to be long Nvidia based on a daily technical perspective at that point, at least in my opinion. So you should be short, and you should be adding to positions, and everything should be great. And we should be going down horribly, because based on technicals. Well, in my hypothesis is that was engineered to get everybody's shares down, right where you're showing, so that they could sell them to the all-time high. Mm-hmm. And now they sold them to the all-time high. Now they got to reaccumulate. So, I think the obvious liquidity pool right now would be that last swing low. So if that's targeted, I would be really excited about thinking about long positions in Nvidia. That first higher low, which broke the downtrend. And so that's the game. It's poker against the biggest guys with the biggest pockets who have the biggest interest and who have a real problem, which is it takes them days, if not weeks, or a very unique set of circumstances to fill the kind of size that they want to put on. Let's see if we're not talking guys with hundreds of millions of dollars anymore. We're talking hundreds of billions, if not trillions, that they need to fill. So what I find most intriguing and fun about this is we've gone full circle, because this is just the way the market worked. So back in the 1800s, most shares would do 500 or 1,000 shares a day. And there were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that would do, 10,000 shares a day. That was a big deal. And so these syndicates would shove price around to release that liquidity, for the big dogs to fill their coffers, and then, let the trend unfold and mark it up and sell it at a premium.
The orders that you're talking about, like those support the heads and shoulders, you can see some orders out there right now. So you got about 480,000 at 130, which is what you were looking at.
Yep.
500,000. Here's some big orders here. 155 for almost a million, and then you got 1.1 million at 160. So
Yeah. And
those
then
orders
think
could
about
be
all the
big.
dark pools, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think about all the, I mean, people like you and I have traded Head and Shoulders our whole career and, know that
Yep.
they're really valuable. Well, so for a traditional trader, if you took the Head and Shoulders in Nvidia, you had a great trade, you clearly took partials, and then your partials got stopped out and you didn't really think too much about it.
Yeah.
For the amateur who just kept their stop, do or die, that they saw some money and then it got taken away and they got stopped out. So I wonder if a lot of people who are very good in this craft are just seeing maybe a little bit reduced profitability and don't really care because they're getting their, or maybe they're not taking partials as much, they're taking the full position off, or they're changing their behavior in little ways, but they don't really understand how beautifully the language patterns of these visual chart setups are being crafted. And again, ask the question: would it be worth a couple $100 million of losses to put a couple billion in your pocket? Wouldn't you do that? And then the other piece is maybe most of this manipulation is really because it's so violent. What
Mm-hmm.
what changes the most in a violent price action? Options,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you manipulate the underlying violently up or down, um, that would be a highly leveraged outcome in an options position. And most of these big market makers do both. So that may be the game as well. But anyway, it's fascinating to try to figure out the poker player's tells, and when he
It's a
scratches
game.
his nose, it's time to go all in because he's bluffing. And that's basically what we're doing here. But we're doing it with a visual form of interaction rather than anything else.
Yeah, it's just a game. I tell everyone, you just got to know how to play the game. Like here, we were talking
So
about
I'm
like
still
how
doing it
things
30 years later. It's
manipulated.
fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, and you know what? It's like listen, you're not going to you're not going to go undefeated. You're going to
Oh,
lose. The whole
yeah.
idea is to learn how. Listen, they got me today. You come back tomorrow. The whole idea is you don't fall into something like something like this.
And honestly, poker is a great training ground because if you play poker, it's a heartbreak game. You do the right thing, with the right math behind it. Straight draws, flush draws, you're only at like a 30% chance of being successful. So it kind of teaches you to play the odds. And even though the reward is good, but the possibility for outcome is bad.
Uh-huh.
Some of the best trading strategies I've ever analyzed have 20 to 30% win rates. They're brutally hard emotionally, but boy, they pay off real well.
They do. They do.
So the most uncomfortable thing is usually the most profitable, just for beginners as a rule of thumb. So get used to that, reframe it, take those moments of ludicrous ridiculousness and realize that maybe that's the opportunity because everyone else is screaming in panic. And that's contrary thinking 101, but it's taken to a different level right now. So that's been a fun challenge for me.
So before we go, where do you think everything is going? I mean, what should people expect? It's a new year, 2025. We got a new administration coming in. You've seen what's been happening, like you saw what Nvidia, the CEO said. And by the way,
Yep.
he's the one taking a lot of these stocks down too. The one that just showed up, like all the quantum stocks and some of the AI stocks. I mean, they had some really, really big runs. They took it, but
Mm-hmm.
you got military stocks. I mean, I love when a new administration comes in because they have a different ideology. They
Change.
screw everything that the other guy's doing.
Yeah.
And and they just change everything around. And it's good for us as traders. That's why we're in this business. We don't take things
Oh, yeah.
personal. You might not like what they have to say. You might not like their ideology or their philosophy, whatever it is. You just got to be like, hey, listen, then do the opposite. And let me know how that works out for you. So what do you see what's going on in 2025?
So I think some of the big themes that I'm looking at is Forex has been kind of choppy and dead for a long time. And now that's totally changed. So Forex, I think in longer time frames, is going to have some really big moves as these giant policy shifts and geopolitical shifts occur. That will force
What do you
people
think?
to.
Like the dollar's going to go higher, or like what
Well,
are
dollar's
you
been
looking at?
really strong. Yeah, the dollar's been really strong, and that's had a big impact. But you've also got all of the issues in Japan. Obviously, the yen has been all over the place. So there've been some really big moves there. If Trump sort of deglobalizes as he says he will do, then it sort of cuts loose a lot of these other economies, and their currencies may be more free floating against the dollar. So you might get some big dollar whatever moves that'd be pretty
He
cool.
said they wanted to stop using the dollar, and he's going to like tariff the shit out of him. He said,
Yeah, right. He wants to keep King Dollar, and I think he probably will, and wave that stick if he needs to. The
right.
bond market has been very screwy. We have a cutting interest rates, and yet the bonds are up. right? So there's a lot of energy there. Like you say, anytime people get stuck, uh, they have much bigger fish to fry, and they're less worried about price action, and so they can, they'll hemorrhage in or out of a market as they reposition, and that can be, an amazing boon for guys like us who are just interested in a couple hours, couple days, a week or two.
Right.
I think that broadly, 2025 will be a nightmare for the classic diversified investor set, but it's going to be the beginning of a gold mine for active traders, because there's going to be all kinds of these giant moves, shifts. AI is the hottest thing ever, and then there'll be some new thing that comes up.
And to
Like
crash.
we all saw the shift from BlackBerry and Nokia to Apple iPhone and then Samsung, right? There'll be
Right.
shifts like that happening in AI. Nvidia won't be the darling anymore. There'll be something we don't even know exists that'll be better. So
Yeah,
all
even
that
EV stocks, all the
yeah,
EVs, like all the stocks took off, when Biden came in, and now they got hammered. I mean, a lot of them went out of business too. So,
yes,
um,
exactly.
they got all this
So
funding,
so
and
all those all those themes are going to be producing change and producing trend. So
right.
I think if you go back and look at a lot of the technical analysis that you all know and see in your trading programs, they were mostly developed in the 70s during a very similar period of sort of stagflation and confusion, and not great leadership, and not clear future planning in the U.S. government. And then we came out of the 70s into the boom boom 80s. So I think we're in that same cycle, and I think it's going to be kind of awesome. So really simple, broad strokes. I think there's going to be a lot of sector based stuff. Great sectors, bad sectors. So there's shorts and
What
longs
sectors?
available there.
Which sectors you like?
I think that the gold Bitcoin world is going to change dramatically. I think gold is has a big short squeeze, and silver has a big short squeeze coming.
Really?
And I think
I
that
own
could be
gold.
really
You think it's
interesting.
going to go higher?
Yeah, I think it probably will. I think it will be competitive Bitcoin, so that'd be kind of an interesting place. AI
Okay.
is not going away. Nvidia is a great trading vehicle, but if you're looking at investment stuff, there's probably a bunch of new AI companies that are going to come online that could be longer term stuff. I'm pretty
Right.
much of a short term, medium term guy, so anything more than a couple of weeks is outside my purview, because that's where I can be the most accurate and
Right.
consistently.
You're like me.
Um, yeah, exactly. It just, why would I hold something when for a three bagger if I can do the same thing, over 100 trades in multiple stocks? You keep the money velocity going, and it's better if you have that skill set. So the skill set is worth slogging through. It's miserable.
Yeah.
I can help you with the head game, so you're less, you less want to just drink yourself into oblivion, as a lot of our compatriots used to do, probably still do, with chilaxidol and other tools. But yeah, it's absolutely worth it. The lifestyle is fantastic. Once you transcend the manic depressive stress period, there is no better, And I went even funnier story. I know we're getting to the end of time, but having analyzed stocks for decades, I actually went and got an MBA to kind of see what the other side of the street was, and maybe I'd get into private equity or venture capital or something like that. And
Okay.
we're really going deep on business models, and they're so excited about this giant margin business. I'm looking at them like, this isn't even close. It's not even close to trading. The risks are higher. There's so much more systemic risk. So if you can crack this nut, it is truly the most efficient and the best business on the planet, if you got whatever your capital base is.
Well,
So
give me the link that
it's a
we actually
beautiful
can send
life.
everybody, where they can come and see a little bit more about it and learn a little bit more about you. So, regardless, they can start
Yep.
following you and everything else. Because
So
one thing I want you to have you on is because you're very, very, very similar to the way I trade it, and that's why we've been around for this long. Otherwise, we'd be out of
mhm.
business.
Yes, exactly right. So if you're, so you always go to boyoder.com. All the stuff I do is usually pretty much there. I have a bunch of forecasts, and I talk about the syndicate and things of that nature. I'm working on an AI clone of myself, which is actually working pretty cool, on X. So just Bo_Yoder, @Bo_Yoder on X. I don't do a bunch of YouTube stuff. I'm not a real, big on the marketing side. I sort of, share my stuff, and people find me who need to. But for everybody who's interested in trading or wants to trade, I would say go to chilaxidol.com, CHILLAXIDOL, like the best drug you never take. And there are a bunch of videos you can download there. They're not trade specific. I have some of those, that I do when we do the actual meal ellipsis seminars. But take a trade, huff and puff for 5 minutes. You'd be amazed at how your brain changes, and that will probably help your trading more than any tool, technique, wiggle I could show you on a chart. And then I do real hardcore, like the neurobiology of meiolysis and how to work that, every once in a while. So you can go to learn.boyoder.com and see if I got another seminar coming up or when. I'm going to do one in February, and I just did one a couple weeks ago. So mostly my homepage is a good place to start. And yeah, learn.boyoder.com. That's the spot for the next meiolysis seminar. And again, get the head game first. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of people one-on-one, and thousands and tens of thousands in large group settings. If I could go back and change one thing about my entire career, it would be start with the head game, and don't you can't think your way to riches. You just can't. It's not the way the brain works. So you have to hijack it. You have to turn it off. And drugs are a bad way to do it, in my view. So when you can do it with air and 5 minutes. So learn about the default mode network. Learn how to detune that so that it's not screeching in your ear to freak out every time you take a trade or take a big trade or have a big profit. You'll be much more objective and clear, and you'll be better served because if you trade your trade plan, then you actually have objective data around whether your trade plan is good enough or maybe need to shift, or then you can actually make an adult decision about your trading style and whether there's another one that might be better for you. But if you're not executing, don't even bother. Work on the head game first. Get comfortable. All the stories and techniques about accepting risk and everything go away if you shut down the default mode networks. That really is the golden key to all trading, in my opinion, is understanding the survival network in the brain and how to keep yourself out of that animal fight or flight while you're trading. It should be boring. It should feel like paper trading.
Yeah, I tell everybody, Bo, that we're as traders, we trade about 70, 80% exactly the same, in the way that it's mainly psychology and the discipline. The only 20, 30%, the difference from anyone we have here on our podcast is somebody might trade futures, some might trade options, whatever it is. But a lot of it is psychology part of it. And I think a lot of it has to do too, is what you learn. Two reasons. Number one, maybe that's not your style. Or number two, you're trading way too many shares, and you got to learn how to lose first before you can win. And, and if you're getting very emotional, like you're saying, sometimes obviously you're trading too much, because a lot of people think it's very stressful, and like it's only stressful because you're making it stressful.
And the stress you feel is not the stress you're feeling is not because you're weak, you're broken, you're wrong, you're less than, you're a bad person. It's because you have a human brain and you just don't have an operating manual for it in this particular business, which is designed and now I think weaponized against you the same way that people in Vegas create addiction loops and dopamine loops inside the different games that they play. They're doing the same thing here. So you're being hijacked the same way advertising does, the same way the way copywriting does. So if you understand the operating manual of how your survival brain works, you can detach yourself from that, and then it's just data. Like I have a big position on now. Is it working? Is it not? I don't know. Have I thought about it once? No. I'm fully engaged in this conversation. It will do what it will do. I think I'm right. I had a strong edge in the entry, and I'm okay with whatever outcome. And getting to that place of transcendence is great.
And if it doesn't, you'll still be here.
Yeah, I'll trade again tomorrow.
I'm trading again tomorrow. Something else. Always got to change. Bo, thanks for coming. Great to have you on here.
It's been a while. I really enjoyed it.
I know. We've got to have you back. Look forward to having you back and doing some more. And everyone here, let everybody know, we'll have this nice little shorts, like as always. We'll have some highlights of it. We'll have by the end of the day. Just make sure you subscribe to Cybertrader University on the top right-hand corner. We'll get you that scanner. Like us, friend us, and share us, and we'll get you all these highlights with Bo and all our people on our podcast. Bo, thanks again. Happy trading, and
take care.
Enjoy the weather, because I'm freezing over here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Watch what the syndicate's doing. That's where the market's likely to go. It's going to be a fun year. Everybody enjoy 2025. Good luck and good trading.
Thanks. Don't